on his way in. I just saw him. He had earbuds in, so I'm assuming he was on the phone.
Kelly, we'll be doing all votes by roll call.
I heard that. Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I will. Nick, we'll be doing all votes by roll call. Shane will have to do his that way because he's called in. And
Where's your moderator?
I think sure. It'd be nice. It's something there. I'll get it. Okay. Yeah.
All right, you ready to roll? All right, 2 o'clock. We're going to get this meeting started. Welcome, everyone. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and move on to general comments from the public for items that are not on the agenda. Any comments from the public? Not seeing any. We'll go to item 3. Any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar?
Yes, we do. We are pulling item 6F.
6F will be removed from today's agenda.
And it will either appear on the next board meeting, which is 3 weeks away, but we're going to have some internal discussions about it. And if it's possible, we might have to call a special meeting for it. I hope not, but we'll let you know as much advance as possible. Nice notice.
Okay. Thank you. Item 4, adoption of the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Okay, Director Klein, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Longo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. That passes. On to consent items. There were no items brought forward for separate action. Nothing was pulled, so I think we're good there. Going on to item 6A, fiscal year 2025-26 water and sewer service rate charges. Andrea, take us away.
Good afternoon, President Lomsos and Directors. The district's complex water, wastewater, and recycled water systems require ongoing maintenance, replacement, and improvement. Current ongoing revenue streams are not adequate to pay for necessary facility improvements, such as community-wide fire flow, as well as outdated water and wastewater system upgrades. Although the district is continuously making improvements, much of the infrastructure was built in the early 1960s, so it will take many years to complete the necessary system improvements. As much of the community is experiencing inflation and the everyday cost of living, South Tahoe Public Utility District is experiencing the same in all areas, including the operating and maintenance expenses. A prime example of this is a significant increase in utilities and property and liability insurance. STPUD is Liberty Utilities' largest customer, and as such is projecting a $1.9 million increase in expense next year. In addition, property and liability insurance has increased by $300,000. These cost increases combined are equivalent to a 5% increase to the district's water and sewer rates. Furthermore, supply chains of materials have been dramatically affected for numerous reasons, resulting in longer lead times and increased costs. The district demonstrates its commitment to keeping costs as low as possible through the attainment of more than $18 million in grants and $79 million in subsidized low-interest loans over the past 10 years, which has resulted in the lowest water and sewer rates in the Tahoe region. In addition, the district realizes the rate increases create financial challenges for its customers, and as such offers 2 financial assistance programs for which eligibility requirements can be found on the STPUD website. On May 16, 2024, the Board of Directors passed Ordinance Number 589-24, which included 5 years' worth of rates for both water and sewer service. The ordinance adopted the rates for fiscal year 24-25, but requires confirmation by resolution from the board before the rates for years 25-26, 26-27, 27-28, and 28-29 are effective. During the April 3, 2025 budget workshop, the board directed staff to incorporate the proposed 9.5% water and sewer rate increases into the proposed 25-26 budget and bring forward the resolutions for board action on May 15, 2025. Communication on these proposed rate changes have occurred via local publications, our website, and in addition, 12,000 emails were sent to customers, of which 65% were read. As of today, just prior to the board meeting, we have received a total of 18 responses, 17 responses opposing the rate increase, and 1 supporting it, which equates to less than 0.25%. Are there any questions?
Board discussion or question?
I guess just kind of a comment, if community service had got any kind of, comments beyond that, sense of that would be great, I think, before we got into that.
Customer service.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ryan Lee, Customer Service Manager. Yeah, so I've been in touch with staff. We've actually been tracking all of the responses that we've received over the phone, customer comments. A couple of years ago, we set up a form where everybody who's answering phone calls or interacting with the customers is able to record that feedback so that we can report on that to the board. Those numbers are actually included in the number that Andrea mentioned, where this, in my experience here, was the lowest feedback we've ever seen from the customer base. We really did not get a lot of calls about the rate increases. Like Andrea said, we did a lot of outreach. Shelley has given interviews on local TV stations. There was the message that appeared on all of the May bills that went out. And like she mentioned, we sent out 12,000 emails. Basically, everybody who we have an email address for got an email from us describing the proposed rate increases, as well as the meeting that's happening today and different ways that they could get feedback to us if they want that to come to the board. So we did not hear much at all. We didn't hear much from customers who came into the office. A couple people had asked questions about it, but did not provide feedback on, whether they supported it or not. So, I've been doing this for a long time, and like I said, this year was actually, I was surprised to see that we got far fewer comments than we have in the past.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm going to go to public comment.
I just wanted to make some statements.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because based on people that I've talked to, it's just something I can't support based on what I was voted in for. I think it just far exceeds our completion rate historically. And even taking out COVID years, that ranges from 45% to 69%, as I've stated before, which justifies a 4.25 to a 6.5% rate increase. As I've said, I don't oppose rate increases. I just think that what we're asking for here is far outside of what is justified. The other thing I want to take into consideration is the fact that I've been here for a long time. I've seen a lot that's gone on here. I don't want to like cause more resource strain on the work staff, on the working force. You know, we don't want to cause burnout with staff based on the amount of projects that are being taken on because of the longer time frames. And I realize that there's going to be turnover. That's an obvious thing, but just getting closer to that realistic rate increase, I think is something that we could take into consideration as the board, and just not overcommitting on projects that, you know, undermines kind of the trust of the public and kind of strains our resources again, especially at the workforce level. So, yeah, just want to get that out there.
You know, add a bit of a counter. So, you know, running for the board originally, there was a few different things I was really concerned on. I would say renewable energy, I don't think is anybody's secret, kind of sustainability goals, fire preparedness, and then it was really the graph that has been shown so many times showing the investment within the last 50 years and then the previous 50 years. And what I understood with that immediately, and then, you know, interacting with Jim Jones, God rest his soul, about the budgetary realities of the district, was a district that was underfunded for decades. I cast no aspersions on any past boards or the decisions they made, but the reality is what it is. If you invest in anything under inflationary realities over a long enough period of time, you're going to be in a substantial point of debt. If we continue on that process, we're going to run into a system in which, everybody in staff knows this, and our ability to repair is going to exceed our ability to replace, and we're going to have to increase costs more dramatically. You see that for water and sewer districts from coast to coast. There's a lot of different examples we can cite. And so although for political expedience, I would love to say, like, we're going to do a lower percentage that's needed, but morality dictates I do something else because I know the situation, I know the realities on the ground. More broadly, I know staff and how they spend money and how they look to save money. So in kind of fairness to kind of that whole process, understanding that maintaining the system is mission critical and our mission statement, and that more broadly, you know, a wise man plants a tree that they hope to sit, you know, the kids to sit on one day. I'm going to go with the wise man's recommendation instead of political expediency and go for the rate increase. I thought about this long and hard. There's a lot of poor people, I think, in all our budgetary comments. We've had a lot of conversations about that. Deep, deep, deep concerns because this is a poor community. But also, we can't let this community fail. And so I think we as a board have done a great deal. We're doing more for low-income individuals than any other water sewer provider in the basin. We added another tier because the single greatest group we had heard would continue to provide comments were retirees and veterans and so forth. And so we've done a great deal as we can, but I believe in terms of, you know, what our responsibility is here, that we have to make up for those deficiencies and we have to begin that now. I guess in the closing, whether I could see those rate increases continuing for another decade, we'll leave that for future discussions. And I have a great deal of skepticism and, you know, do agree with points that Joel had raised. But I wanted to provide that context from when I got on the board to why we're here, and that why it's a necessity now to invest, because if we don't, it will become more expensive later. And so thank you.
And I would like to echo what Nick said. Very good job. I would say all that myself. I would like to say as well that personally, I'm retired. Prior to retiring, I ran a business for over 10 years that was not necessarily financially successful. And I have a lot of experience working at a locally owned small community bank. I talk to people every day. I know the challenges of living in this community, the fiscal challenges. But this is about healthy drinking water. This is about keeping our environment safe, protecting the lake. And I think with this type of the business that we do, you need to be proactive, not reactive. And we have had emergencies that have cost us far more than it would have cost if it would have been something that would have been on the capital improvement plan and completed. And so I understand the struggles, but this has to be done. And as you know, Nick said, and I just want to reiterate it, there were many years where there were no rate increases. And unfortunately, we're having to take that into consideration. And I don't think that any board member, I've been on the board the longest, this is never anything that's taken lightly. This decision is well thought out.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to move to the public now. I know we have one speaker in the room. I'd like to invite Scott up to the podium to address the board.
Thank you. Seems pretty incredulous to increase it 9.5%. You're talking about percentage, but what's the percentage of the people that oppose the rate increase to those that favored the increase? You got a customer service person here, but I would say that if you take it in percentage, people oppose this increase. Just because a small number responded does not mean that the public is for this rate increase. It's, you know, sleight of hand. When they're not looking, let's do this, or when they're not speaking out, let's increase this. You know, it's pretty incredulous when you've got a company that neglected some pipes for 60, 70 years, and now it's, oh, we got to fix this. In the private sector, you'd all be fired. You know, the cost, if it had been done properly, would have been done years ago, and it would have been a much lower cost. Just for example, the roundabout. They were supposed to put in two roundabouts in '93, and the first one didn't go in Myers until 2000. That was like $3.5 million. Now they're taking out perfectly good signals, and it's going to cost $10 million in Pioneer. That's what happens when you delay stuff. And I didn't make those decisions to delay the stuff, but I got to pay the consequences. The same thing, you're doing all this work, but nothing's being done in my neighborhood. Between the city and the water company, that's about $200 million worth of projects, and not $1 is being spent in my neighborhood. Not a penny. That's Highland Woods. Not a penny is spent on it. And you've got people hit the fire hydrants. Now you're going to have bigger lines. You're going to lose even more water when somebody hits the fire hydrant. But the bottom line is this has been neglected for ages, and now we're expected to pay for something that should have been paid for years ago, and we're going to pay at today's rate, not the rate that would have been years ago. It's just incredible to say, oh, this stuff's old, we got to fix it. How long have you known that? I mean, surely the job is to check this stuff out along the way and not wait until the last second and say, oh, we haven't done anything over here, we should probably check. Things are probably rotten. You know, the pipes are broken, they're old, we got to replace them. They should have been done years ago at a much lower rate and not causing a 9.5% rate increase. Just on one quick aside, if I may, the California Hotel, aka California Motel, has a well that they're capping. I don't know if that's of any interest to you guys, but they're capping a well over there. Thanks.
Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Roxanne Booth. I've lived here about 40 years. This has kind of been happening to us constantly over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years. Our rates have just been constantly increasing. We're not a bottomless pit. So regardless of whether it's needed or not, it doesn't mean that we can all afford this. This town has had 2 major exoduses where people have left this town because they couldn't afford it. So we're just going to keep jacking it up for those that are here. You want the rest of us to leave too? Because this isn't something that we can afford. Sacramento's rates are 1/5 of your rates. I don't care if their population is larger. They don't even have their own water source. We have our own water source, and we're paying 5 times what Sacramento pays the people there. You think that's fair? It's not. Everything has increased. We have to have increased utilities from gas. We have increased electric. Now, our water has been doubled and tripled and now quadrupled in the last 5 years. That's ridiculous. You're not being realistic about what the people here can afford. just because it needs to be done. What about the cutback? Maybe there's things that you guys have allowed to be done that didn't really need to be done. Maybe you need to start looking at some cutbacks. Maybe we need to start looking at Brooke Lane's little enterprise. Now that she's turned VHS into a business where they're enforcing everything they can to penalize and punish all the visitors and tourists, maybe some of that income should go to the water. Maybe we should start figuring out what all of the other aspects of Tahoe governance is doing. Because to me, the VHS thing is ridiculous, the fact that now we have to find problems so that we can pay the enforcers. Well, maybe all that money, where is it going? Maybe it needs to go here. All I can tell you is we're not a bottomless pit. We have limited income. We only make so much. Our wages are not increasing. Our income isn't increasing. So where are we supposed to come up with the money for this? And this is just a constant thing from you guys. Every year it's an increase, a huge increase, not a little bit. I remember what I used to pay. I pay triple what I used to pay now. It's like maybe we all can throw away our gardens too and not have that or not do anything. It's basically coming down to the fact that we can't be that responsible. There's such a thing as grants. There's federal government funding. There's other ways that you can reach for things. If you are guys are going to do the TOT for all these people that are second home owners or people that do all that, maybe they should be paying a little bit more. But to expect us to burden this on our back when you guys have already increased and increased and increased and you just want to keep on going, when does it ever stop? Is there a cap? Is there a point where this stops?
Can't say that for sure. I mean, it all depends on the district's needs at the time, based on the infrastructure improvements that either have or have not been completed. I can definitely tell you that based on the plan that's put together right now, if we truly did follow that plan to the T from day one until the end of it, yes, you would see lower rate increases after that. But like you've heard from some of the comments here, including Joel as a new board member, that those decisions are difficult to make. Even the people that are currently in favor of it, those decisions are difficult to make. And so it's possible that the rate increases in the current plan may not get adopted every year. And unfortunately, that extends the need for those rate increases even beyond.
It's been happening consistently, I know, because I know what my rates are. I know that's why they moved it to monthly, because they didn't want it to look so huge. It used to be quarterly, and we knew what it was, and then when you break it down to the month, yeah, you're paying 3 times as much already, even with that last little juggle. That was only following the year before that when they raised it some more. I mean, at some point, you want to just kind of kick everybody out of their house and home, because, our taxes increase too, besides the other utilities. It's like if all our utilities and taxes keep on happening, we'll be taxed completely out of our house and home that we have. We won't have one. So there won't be any more citizens of Tahoe. There will just be all the rich millionaires that come here, and we won't have any slaves to serve them, and that'll be a shame, because if you don't have the slaves, they can't function either. So it's pretty dysfunctional as it is. But you can't just continue to just rape, pillage, and plunder the public that lives here, because we can't afford it. It's not something that is affordable. It's not practical. It is, I don't care how much it's needed. You have to also look at the fact that we can't afford it. So at some point, you have to say, hey, when are we going to stop rape, pillage, and plundering the public?
What I would encourage you to think as it is that this bill is coming due. The question is, if we don't grab a hold of this now, it is going to get more expensive. And not only will it be more expensive, it will be much more expensive, because not only will you be in a situation where you're repairing the system like you must, you're also going to be dealing with deterioration and collapse of the system to a much faster and greater degree than we exist in now. So if we don't exist now, it will get much more expensive. I can't stress that to you enough. There's no other option.
Why do we have a summit here?
Because why we must do it is because that's just how systems grow. Anybody's residence, if you haven't maintained it for decades at a time, will collapse. That's where we're at. I agree with past boards when I only vehemently with past board members that have more continual rate increases when I first sat on this board. For whatever reason, they didn't want to do it, but the fastest time to stop making a bad decision is today. We started this process in a much more kind of regular rate increases, however COVID postponed that. And so this is a function of just capturing that. But it's not a function of the bill not being due at some point. If you don't invest now, the bill will be greater tomorrow. That's just the reality of infrastructure and how we invest in systems. We empathize, as Kelly spoke to. I remember being in a single-income household with 2 little kids and turning on my TV because it was too expensive just to leave it plugged in. I remember those days. But I also remember the importance and the responsibility that was entrusted to us by the community, that we need to maintain the stewardship of the system. We need to do it in a way that's the most responsible way possible to avoid those future rate increases that will spike 40 to 50%, like we've seen through other utility companies. And if you just Google it, you can see through other water utility companies. The exceptional nature of the district here and its staff is the reason our rate increases are 9.5% and Liberty's are 40%. Because we're community members and we invest in our community and we're very responsive to the needs of our community. That's why we're different. But again, I know I've said this multiple times, the bill is coming due. It's just a function of, do you want a bigger or smaller bill now, but we have no other option.
And that's what I disagree with. We have lots of other options. We had a summit here twice now. When Clinton was in office, and we even had another summit here. They donated like some kind of $1 million amount to Tahoe. Why is it that our city council and our different governing boards isn't sharing the wealth? Because some of that money should be done for our infrastructure. Because that summit was held because they wanted to preserve our whole lake and our community. Well, if our community can't afford it because it's so small, maybe some of that funding should have came to keep our water infrastructure in better condition. Either way, there are other ways. There's grant programs, and there are different ways to get funding. Besides, the other point I mentioned is that we are paying 5 times what Sacramento pays. So what do you say to that? Because that's a fact.
Okay, thank you. Is that the conclusion of your comments?
No, the conclusion is that it's not affordable for the average homeowner. That's the conclusion that I have. But I didn't get any response as to, he's saying there are no other options, but there are other options to gain that money.
To you. In public comment, we're not going to have like a back and forth dialogue. That's just not how public comment is structured in our board process. But if there are answers or other things you're seeking, we can definitely get to respond to you.
Specifically, why would we be paying 5 times as much as a community that doesn't have their own water source?
I don't think we're going to be able to answer that right now because we don't know all of the details that go into their rate setting. So I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to give you a detailed answer on that right now. But I think this board has heard the root of your comment about it not being affordable for residents. And as Mr. Ecklein was saying, this board is very thoughtful, and we are members of the community also, in terms of how we need to make this decision to balance not only the impacts to the community, but how it affects the future resilience of our system and whether we can flush the toilet and have clean drinking water to drink. Because our system is woefully underfunded right now. And, as the first commenter said, previous boards did not raise rates and may not have invested enough. And I don't think we're laying it all down right now. Like, this increase is not solving all of that either. And so we have to be very thoughtful and methodical about how do we invest and try and balance as much as possible. Our rate increases are not 40% like Liberty, even though we as a district, being their #1 customer, have to absorb 40% increases from Liberty. We are paying utility bills as well, okay? So there's costs that are coming to this district regardless. And the cost of doing business is going up, and we need to account for that. And we're trying to make it as efficient of a number as possible to not hit our community as hard as it may have to in the future. So we are trying to take those steps now. It's very thought out and thoughtful. And here we are today trying to make a decision to move us forward and advance this system so that it serves water and toilets flush, but it's not without thinking about the impacts to our community.
So what about the fact that you just mentioned the utilities, 40%? That's kind of nationwide, but yet Sacramento's paying, like I said,
Again,
we're paying 5 times as
speak
much
to
as them
the
for our
separate-
utilities.
I'm not going to debate this because we don't know the details of their rates. I'm sorry, we can't.
Yeah, I'm just saying that most rates are kind of global. So if your electric went up 40, so did Sac, so did Reno, so did every other community. But here, you have the smallest population, and now you have the largest increase in this particular utility faction. And therefore, I do believe that there are grants and there are other funding that could take place because it's such a small community, it isn't possible for this community to afford it because it is too small. So we do have to look at other options, and we do have to look at what other parts of our governing faction, such as the city council and so on, which has received several funds and the summit monies and all that money that came from the federal government. It seems to me that maybe we should look at them apportioning a certain amount to our water system if that is failing so tremendously that our community cannot afford it, because we have been given several large sums of money.
Okay, thank you. Nope, I'm gonna close public comment now. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. We can open it back up to board discussion if you want to respond to any of those things, or staff does. We do have a pretty lengthy agenda today. I think we've captured your comments. I appreciate you coming and expressing those comments. And so now I will close public comment, and we'll move on to any additional board discussion before we ask for the requested action.
I didn't have to
Go ahead.
as your general manager. And then I think, we'll give Shane an opportunity to speak if he hasn't had to yet on the phone. But I just wanted to expand on a few things actually that Andrea said. Number one, recall our rates are the lowest in the Tahoe Basin, and they will continue to be after this rate increase. But if you recall, a year ago, the board did accept a 10-year capital improvement plan along with a financial plan that funded that capital improvement plan. And as you've talked about today, the rate increases that were necessary to fund that plan were set at 9.5% annually, and we're anticipated to complete approximately $300 million of infrastructure improvements over 10 years, and that was to ensure that our water and sewer systems continue to be operational to what today, not only today, I should say, but also for future generations. And so we issued a 5-year Proposition 218 last year to all the customers, and it included a 5-year rate schedule illustrating the 9.5% rate increases over a 5-year period. Last year, the board approved the rate increases for year 1, but they purposely drafted the ordinance so it required the board to vote on the rate increases annually versus approving all of the 5 years at once, and so that's why we're here today doing this. So the district staff here, as well as myself, we fully understand that opinions can change from time to time, or new board members can be elected that were not part of the original plan development, and those things definitely have an influence on implementing any type of long-term plan. We do know the plans can change, but they can't be done or redeveloped overnight, especially in the unique construction environment of Tahoe Basin, as you know. Most of our projects take 2 or 3 construction seasons to complete, so removing a project from our plan that's already begun or is soon to begin is actually extremely difficult to juggle. And this same scenario is similar with much of the financing we use to pay for these projects up front. Specifically, I'm referring to the state revolving loan program through California, and that provides subsidized loans with interest rates that are about 50% lower than the typical tax-exempt financing that public agencies usually use. You've heard staff explain many times these loans are very difficult to get, 18 months or more usually of work involved, but they save the customers hundreds of thousands or up to millions of dollars in some cases over the terms of those loans. We currently have 3 of those loan applications outstanding at this time, and we would really hate to give them up if we didn't have the rate revenue to pay them back. So if there is a desire from the board to have district staff redevelop the capital improvement plan, possibly bringing forward a couple of different versions that require rate increases that are less than the 9.5 version, we can do that. But to keep things that are currently in progress moving forward, I would strongly recommend adoption of the 9.5% rate increase this year, and then that would give us a year to possibly adjust or transition to a different plan without stopping the progress of the current projects or those SRF applications. And if you wanted us to do that, I would anticipate that we would probably be able to present some alternative plans to you at some point in probably January or February of 2026. And just one other quick point, I know Andrea touched on this, and you did too, Nick, that we do have to also keep in mind that it's not just our capital costs that we're talking about. There was a point in time when we could easily say that any rate increases adopted by this board would go completely to fund capital projects only. But with the significant increases that we're now seeing in our electric costs as well as our insurance costs, that doesn't allow us to say that anymore. You heard Andrea say that those two cost increases alone are actually equivalent to a 5.8% increase to our rates. So that's a huge number. And so obviously that leaves less to go towards the capital plan. And so I'm only mentioning that because any financial plan moving forward, we have to factor that those costs into that also.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think we discussed even at the budget workshop, looking at different options, kind of making sure our CIP is aligned with delivery and some of the things that were brought up earlier. So I think that's a good suggestion, has my support. Okay, so at this time, any other board discussion on this? Shane, I want to give you an opportunity to chime in.
Sure, thank you, Nick. And I apologize for not being there today, but this is, again, I think I echo Nick and Kelly's sentiment that this is something that we do not take lightly. This is something that we work through, and we grill staff and really work towards going after grants and finding partnerships and finding low-interest loans. They're probably, again, just a bit frustrated with the board in that we are constantly working towards trying to find alternative ways to fund our programs, to be more efficient with the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. I guess the other element that is out there is that the new administration, federal administration that's in office today is really, in a lot of ways, is pulling the rug from underneath us, in that there were a lot of grant programs and things that are getting basically X'd out. And so I guess that's another uncertainty that is banding on us as locals, and so we just need to take that into consideration as well. And again, I think I want to just also identify that our community support mechanisms, the district, offers customer assistance programs for providing 25% rate reductions for qualifying low income and a 15% rate reduction for qualifying Tier 2 customers. So I think if there are situations where folks are having a hard time, I really encourage them to participate in those programs. And again, that's where the board comes in our attempt to make rates more affordable. And again, this is investing in our system. It's everybody's system. I understand there's people that feel very strongly that they may not see a project that lands in their neighborhood, but the reality is that the entire system in and of itself is supporting their neighborhood in different ways. So I just want to think this is something that we do deliberate on and think through, and it's something that we don't take lightly. We really think through this, and it's a hard call to make. But I guess with that, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Shane. All right, at this point, I'm going to ask Andrea for the requested action.
The requested board action is to approve resolution number 3325, confirming the water and sewer service charge rate increase of 9.5% for fiscal year 25-26.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote, Shannon?
Director Explain, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Sheehan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Henderson, how do you vote?
No.
Director Ronco, how do you vote?
Yes?
Director Hayden, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, we have 4 ayes, 1 no, and the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item 6B, fiscal year 2025-26 Water Enterprise Fund budget. Andrea.
The fiscal year 25-26 water fund proposed budget in the amount of $29,520,561 is fully funded and includes a 9.5% increase in service charge rates. The budget includes 28% for capital projects, 9.1% for debt service, 27.5% for operations and maintenance, and 35.5% for salaries and benefits. Are there any questions?
Board questions?
No, I think we went through this and deliberated this and debated this at length multiple times. I do just, I guess, comment to Paul's previous statement. I think the January, February timeline to do that I think is a great idea. I think it's supported by everybody, but no, I feel good with this item based on our previous discussions.
No. Shane, do you have anything?
No, I'm having a hard time hearing people talk, so maybe speak into your microphone.
Will do. Okay, Andrea, can you please read the requested action?
The requested board action is to adopt Resolution 3309-25 for the fiscal year 25-26 Water Enterprise Fund budget and authorize staff to incorporate any adjustments or changes necessary because of board action.
Okay, hold on. Before motion, I'm going to open it up to public comment on this item. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, Shannon?
And how do you vote, Director Explain?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
No.
President Ronco?
Yes.
And Director Hayden?
Yes.
And we have 4 ayes, 1 no, and the motion passes.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item 6C, which is fiscal year 2025-26 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. Andrea again?
Fiscal year 25-26 sewer fund proposed budget in the amount of $40,515,796 is fully funded and includes a 9.5% increase in service charge rates. The budget includes 24.8% for capital projects, 9.6% for debt service, 27.6% for operations and maintenance, and 38% for salaries and benefits. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Same comment as before, feel good? Okay. Shane, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, sorry, requested action. Skip a step.
The requested board action is to adopt Resolution 3310-25 for the fiscal year 25-26 Sewer Enterprise Fund budget and authorize staff to incorporate any adjustments or changes necessary as a result of board action.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Shannon, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, how do you vote, Director Explain?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
No.
President Ronco?
Yes.
Director Hayden?
Yes.
And we have 4 ayes, 1 no, and the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Item 6D, we have 2025 test well project. Mark Silas.
Good afternoon, Mark Silas, Water Resources Manager. Can you hear me, Shane?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Okay, so this is related to the 2025 test well project that we have. in our state line pressure zone. So our state line pressure zone goes from the California state line all the way over to the Y. And 2 weeks ago, the board gave authorization to advertise for construction bids for a single test well that's located on district property at 942 Tanglewood Drive. And at that same meeting, the board authorized the general manager to finalize a real estate transaction for 2438 Cattleman's Trail, and we're currently in escrow and expected to close escrow on that next week. Staff only included one test well site to ensure that we could move the project forward during the short dig season. We're already kind of coming up against a tight timeline, and we were concerned about being able to accomplish 2 test wells because our hydrogeological consultant recommended additional seismic testing at the Cattleman site due to its proximity to areas of known shallow bedrock. And so at that same time, the board expressed the preference to move forward with a 2-hole project, if at all possible, just to ensure economies of scale related to our mobilization costs. And so we returned back to our hydrogeological consultant, and we discussed expediting the seismic survey and basically had them get us a cost estimate for that. And we were able to receive pricing for that survey. It was much higher than expected at $29,000. And in the discussion with the consultant, we determined that simply remobilizing the same contractor from our Tanglewood site to Cattleman's would result in about the same cost if we were to hit bedrock early. And so basically we could use that as an opportunity to survey the bedrock depth as opposed to doing this seismic survey, which has a longer lead time. And so basically how this would work is that we would, I'm looking for a reauthorization to bid for a 2 test well program. And at the second site, the Cattleman site, if basement rock was encountered at a shallow depth, then we would just halt the work and we would grout and abandon the hole and pay only for the work that's completed by the contractor. And so this would kind of allow us to move forward with this project and get these 2 sites done this summer. And so before I read, the estimated cost estimate for the update is $1.6 million. So it represents a modest cost savings here of about $200,000. So before I read the requested action, are there any questions?
Questions? I do. What was the final price on the parcel we purchased?
We got it for, oh man, you're putting me on the spot right now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
I think it was under asking.
It was like $229 and some change.
Yeah, we had
that makes me feel good. I did some more research on it after the last meeting. Okay,
we had a bunch of back and forth, but we ended up getting it under asking.
No, good job. Yeah,
considerably. Yeah.
No, and more just to compliment in terms of kind of the efforts went through to save $200,000. Credit to you guys and everyone that put time into it, and to brainstorm that solution.
Yeah, seems like an efficient solution, and to be able to get 2 well sites, test well sites is good call. Shane, do you have any questions?
No questions, and appreciate you looking into that and finding some cost efficiencies, Mark. Thank you.
All right. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead. Come on up, Scott. Yeah.
Is there any reason they couldn't use the well already drilled at the California Hotel Motel before they cap it, to use that as a test well since that's in the area? Some kind of agreement with them that nothing's going to happen to that property after they finish the demolition for quite some time. And that might be available at a much lower cost or no cost as an option rather than spending money on other pieces of property and doing tests.
All right. Thank you. Look into that. Okay. No more additional public comment. Mark, go ahead and read your requested action.
Reauthorize staff to advertise construction bids for the test well drilling and installation component of the 2025 test well project.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and Director Exline, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director
Yes.
And Director Hayden.
Yes.
And the vote, the motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you, Mark. All right, we're going to move on to 6E, and that is you as well. So go ahead, Mark.
Yep, this is a pre-procurement of a portable generator for the Tahoe Bayview Well Backup Power Project. And so, yeah, there's a lot of history with this project. As you know, we've been waiting for a while to hear back from FEMA. Back in October, we put in a scope of work modification for a portable generator option. We were initially going to have a stationary generator that was stationed at Tahoe Well with an underground duct bank connecting it to Bayview Well. But then we did an internal alternatives analysis, and we found that we could achieve a $2 million cost savings by using a portable generator instead. And so we moved forward with that option, and that required a change petition to our FEMA funding application. We had received $1.3 million in FEMA funding through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, and we didn't want to jeopardize that. And so we put in a change petition for that. And that was back in October, and thankfully on April 28th, FEMA approved our scope of work amendment to incorporate the shared portable generator into the project. And so that's great news for us. I wanted to definitely send a big thank you to our grants team for staying diligent with that. We currently have the project out to bid, and that means that it will now be able to proceed as planned. We have a bid opening June 3rd, and we're expecting for July mobilization. However, we were holding off on incurring expenses for the project components that weren't previously approved prior to that application that we put in. And so we were holding off on this generator in particular, and obviously awarding the bid. And so we are seeking to pre-procure this generator through Sourcewell. It's a CAT 500 kilowatt generator. The district is sole branded on CAT for generators above 500 kilowatts. Our consultant got us a quote on this generator when we were putting together a cost estimate for the project. They estimated, the quote that they got was $475,000 with a 72-week lead time, and that would be a big issue for delivering this project on time, both in terms of our need and in terms of our grant obligations. And so on the staff level, we started working with our local CAT dealer to locate a unit, and we were able to find one that was in stock in Arizona, and they're giving us our Sourcewell member pricing, which is $379,344. And this would save the district over $100,000 after contractor markup, and it allows the project to proceed on schedule. And so, yeah, we're looking to approve the general manager to execute a purchase order for this piece of equipment. But do you guys have any questions?
Great work. I know we've been talking about this mobile unit for a long time, so it's great it's finally coming through. It gives us a lot of flexibility. I appreciate that. So good news indeed. Any other questions or comments?
You know I love backup power, and when you're going to save $100,000 doing it, like, that's 2 thumbs up. That's all I've got for you. Great job. Yeah.
All right. Shane, anything?
No, just, I think this is another great example where staff, our grants program, and the things that we're doing as a board to try to find efficiencies and cost savings. I think this is a really good project, and thank you to staff for finding a more cost-efficient way of making this thing happen.
Okay, Mark, what's your requested action?
This is a long one. So number 1, approve exemption from formal competitive solicitation based on the district's purchasing policy exemption when using competitively awarded cooperative agreements that leverage the state's buying power. And 2, authorize the general manager to execute a purchase order with Empire CAT under Sourcewell contract number 092222 CAT in the amount of $379,344 for the purchase of a CAT XQ570 mobile generator set to be provided for the Tahoe Bayview Well Backup Power Project.
I'll move to approve.
All right. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Roll call vote.
Director Exline, how do you vote?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
Yes.
President Ronso?
Yes.
And Director Hayden?
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Item F was pulled. I'm going to revisit that one in a future meeting. Item G, City of South Lake Tahoe reimbursement agreement. Chris Stanley. Hi.
City of South Lake Tahoe is going to start doing some paving project over on Herbert Lockup area. If you guys remember last year, we went through a lot of that area and we placed water main. So now they're going to go into part of that where we were and on Herbert itself down where we haven't replaced the line. But what we wanted to do was enter into a reimbursement agreement with the city. And what that contains is when they go in to do the paving, they usually take out our water boxes and our manholes. Manholes, they'll take out the rings or the frames, whatever it takes to get it down several inches, and the same with the water boxes. And what they do is they go over and they grind through, so you don't have to worry about going around the manhole or the water boxes. They can just go right over where they are. Then the contractor after paving comes back in and reinstalls all of our stuff up to grade level. It works out real good for everybody involved instead of us trying to follow them around and taking people away from things that we could be doing, you know, out in the field for ourselves. So basically, I'm here today to ask for approval to enter with this reimbursement agreement with the city. There's basically 61 manholes and or water valves that they need to address during this. It has been increased by 25% just to make sure that we don't run into any problems, or if it goes over a little bit, we find more boxes or something like that happens, we have a little bit of leeway. We've done this before, so I don't want to get into too much detail, so if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
No, I mean, this is an efficient way to raise and lower iron, so we're not pulling, like you said, our crews off or doing it as a separate contract even. Yes. So it's an efficient way to partner with the city to do that while that contractor is out there. 61 items, that's a lot. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Any other questions or comments?
Just concur with what you said. Great with the efficiency, great with the collaboration, you know, avoid paving something, ripping something out, making changes, so yeah.
Exactly. You know, we've tried it several different ways over the years, and doing it this way is the most efficient. And the price per box hasn't really changed a whole lot in a lot of years. It's $1,800 each, and I can remember 10, 15 years ago it was $1,500 each. So it hasn't increased.
The only thing that's not increased.
Yeah. It hasn't increased a lot. So we're comfortable with that. And hopefully you are too, so that's what we'd like to shoot for if it's okay with you.
Any public comment on this item? Chris can answer. Scott's going to, sorry.
Well, I don't know how it is with the water boxes, but I can tell you with the utilities, when the whether it's the water company or the power company cuts into the street, they give money to the city, and then the city does not use that money. So I'd put some kind of a clause on there to make sure that they use it and do the work within a certain period of time, because my neighborhood has got lots of cuts out of the street, and nothing's been fixed. Yeah. So.
Thanks for that. Okay. Nothing further from the board. Let's go ahead and hear your requested action, Chris.
Approve reimbursement agreement with the City of South Lake Tahoe for the work performed on district facilities related to the city's 2025 road rehabilitation project in the amount not to exceed $137,250.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, how do you vote? Director Exline?
Yes.
Director Sheehan?
Yes.
Director Henderson?
Yes.
President Romso?
Yes.
And Director Hayden?
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, Chris.
If I could just say one thing to help here. We go out prior to the project like this and look at all of our water boxes and manholes. And then after the project, we also go out and double check that everything has been completed according to plan. If we have a buried manhole or something in the asphalt and we have a sewer stoppage, it creates a heck of a problem.
No, I don't
So
doubt
I
that those water boxes would take care. I'm just talking about where they cut utility, you know, whether it's a water pipe or, electrical lines, and then the city gets reimbursed, and then they spend the money elsewhere.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure, we take that real serious, and we'll double check it.
All right, great. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 7, standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports. Any reports?
Nothing.
Yeah, we had ops. I did leave a little early for Little League, so Shane may have to jump in and add some details that I do not have, but I'll try to start it off for him since he's not physically here. Yeah, the cattleman stuff obviously brought up on today's agenda, so don't have to go too much into that. Some discovery happening in the Heather Lake area. There's some situation there that will more to come on that. Water system. Raising and lowering was brought to our attention at that as well for the Herbert walk-up area as well. And I think that's about all I had information on. I had to step out through the part of the presentation that was happening. So, Shane, do you have any additional?
Sure, yeah. No, there was, Brent Golgowski gave a presentation on the aeration blower system. Basically some of the inefficiencies, the challenges with a 50-year-old system, and kind of talk through some options for improving that. Yeah, we talked through the Bayview power and improvement piece. Adrian gave a little presentation. They're going to be conducting a fire department training, and I think those are going to be playing out on June 9th, 10th, and 12th, and those will be, I guess, encourage board members to participate if they're available. So I guess that's, you know, basically proper on and off of our valves and other understanding of the types of fire hydrants we have in place. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some of the other things. Oh, we also had a really detailed presentation on digester systems from John, and that was very interesting, and appreciate his time and energy spent on that. And let's see, yeah, we talked through the Lahontan fee for recycled water users. So this is basically the bill that's being put on our receiving landholders for our recycled water, and so we are looking to compensate them for that. And then we talked through basically the destination hotel, which is formerly known as Sorensen's. They're looking to basically tie into our sea line, but there's still some work that needs to be worked out through that. I think that's all I got. I don't know if Adrian's in the audience there, you can maybe add some more.
Okay. Thanks for the reports. I just have a quick one on the El Dorado Water Agency. Met last week, and it was a workshop basically to finalize their strategic plan, the 5-year strategic plan we've been working on for quite a while. I know Kelly and Paul have been involved in that process as well. The good news is that Tahoe's getting a lot more acknowledgement, I think, because El Dorado Water Agency is the entire El Dorado County. And if you look at their workload and what they're really focused on, it's really the west slope. And so I think we've done a good job advocating for more attention in Tahoe in terms of, you know, hopefully investment in some of the activities that we do in the planning space. That is what they are doing on the west slope for many of the other water purveyors. So it's going well. It's a good group, and I think we made a lot of headway this year. So hopefully we can continue that. That's all I have. Okay, so going on to item 8, board member reports. Any other board member reports?
No, I guess just as we get into spring, kind of tying into the budgetary discussion, you know, part of our budgetary decision was to be inspired to be able to support fire preparedness to the greatest extent possible. So we all need to do that ourselves. Fire defensible space, pick up your pine needles, and we work as a community, both from the fire district to the individual. So that's it.
Well, Shane, anything?
No, just call out that I'm the sole representative of South Tahoe Public Utilities District here at the Association of California Water Agencies, and there's some really good presentations. Much of it has to do with fire preparedness and how the water providers are dealing with those situations, especially after the fire. So, places like, Altadena, Palisades, Malibu region. So some of those things, they had some really good, recommendations for how to get your water system turned back on and get it done within 30 days. And also participated in our Region 3 representation or membership. And so we sat through that. That was great. I got to meet some of the folks that are participating on that. But altogether, a pretty good meeting, and good to know some of these folks that are working on the water delivery side. Thanks.
Thank you, Shane. All right, moving on to staff and attorney reports. Anything?
We do not have any today.
Okay. Then the notice of past and future meetings is listed there and under item 11, and we are going to move into closed session. So we're going to adjourn the open session now. Thank you.
Very good job.
Yeah, I'm just not used to it.